You know Gray Bar for electrical parts, but there's one more thing you may not be thinking of us for that can help maximize your next project's total value. Our pre-project planning services are designed to help you win the bid, save on labor costs, and keep your installers productive across your entire build. The sooner you call us, the better. Because when we're there from the beginning, we can anticipate your needs and help you solve problems before they become problems. Yep, Gray Bar does that.
It is an Independence Day edition of the Show Before the Show podcast. I am the most literal podcaster ever in that I am actually recording this from my mother's basement. For my mom's for a little 4th of July barbecue, I just scarfed down a burger and a hot dog, and now I'm literally, this is the most literal podcast anyone has ever recorded.
I can't believe you just painted that picture and just outed yourself in that way. That we've been doing this for years in our mother's basements, but haven't told anybody, and now you just podcasted it out.
It's also Conan O'Brien skits where he used to do like his video blog. We're like, okay, welcome back to my video blog, and then Andy Richter would barge in. Get out, Andy! That's me right now. That's my older sibling, Andy Richter, will be busting in anytime now. But hey, happy 4th, Samuel.
Happy 4th, Tyler. I can't wait for your mom to come barging in.
Yeah, she's gonna be down here in a second. Did you want any of these baked beans before I throw them out?
Exactly. Your mother is a very nice person, having met her at Coors Field. So it would not surprise me whatsoever for her to come down and offer you additional food.
My mom is, New York Italian from East Harlem. The only thing that is imprinted in her genetic code is offering more food to people. That's the number one thing that she does as a person, which is great because it's, that's why I have this lovely physique that I have. It's
yes. Blame your mother for your own physique.
Life of me just eating extra food. It's great. So with that, we welcome you into this week's episode of the Show Before the Show from MILB.com. Sam pointed out this is episode 216. 216 is the area code of Cleveland, Ohio, which hosts the Major League All-Star Game coming up next week. That's pretty cool. And the MLB All-Star Futures Game coming up on Sunday. That is also very cool. I'm going to talk about that here momentarily. And with that, we'll get started. Thanks for joining us on this week's episode. You can give us a rating and a review and a subscription wherever you find us through Apple Podcasts and Google Play and elsewhere. And you can also contact the show, podcast at MILB.com. Got a question in that we're going to address here coming up in just a couple of minutes as we dive into Three Strikes, where we tackle three of the biggest topics in minor league baseball from week to week. And strike one this week, the Futures Game coming up on July 7th in Cleveland. 37 top 100 prospects from Major League Baseball are slotted among the rosters. Now, this year's format is different. It is not United States versus World Team. It is American League versus National League. It's only going to be a 7-inning game, which harkens back to the inaugural edition of the Futures Game when it was also a 7-inning contest. So it's a little bit different feel to it this year. But Sam, what sticks out most to you among Futures Game rosters and the whole aura of this event for this season?
Yeah, I mean, we probably talked about this a little bit in the past, but now that the rosters are officially out, it is actually really interesting to me this year how this shakes out with the AL and the NL, and that I think these rosters are just so much more loaded than they've ever been, at least in my time covering that. And that's really saying something, because the Futures Game is something we get excited to cover every year. I'm going to be there in Cleveland. It's always a fun time to just be in either locker room really and look around you and think like everybody in here is a prospect. But that's even more so this year. One of the things I liked about the U.S. and the world side is that there was always built-in storylines about guys representing their country in a Futures Game. But sometimes, there would be a little bit too much coverage, and the world team wouldn't be quite as strong as the U.S. team just because, they're trying to pull in from multiple countries and all that kind of jazz. This year, AL and NL, you can pick almost anybody and split them up. And this is still it's going to be a strong roster either side. So it's going to be really interesting to see that dichotomy. I don't see really a clear advantage between the two, AL and NL, as opposed to years past where The U.S. I would usually think had a little bit of an advantage. So that's going to be really neat. But yeah, just going through these rosters, imagine this, and I'm not saying it's going to happen this way, but just imagine this idea. At third base for the American League is Nolan Jones. To his left is Wander Franco, the top overall prospect in baseball. To his left is Nick Madrigal, a first-round pick last year, one of the best hit tools in the minor leagues. To his left is Evan White, one of the best defensive first baseman in the minor leagues, and a top 100 prospect.
First baseman prospects we've seen in a long time too.
Right,
like
probably
not
since
just
Cody
right
Bellinger.
Now. He is an elite level defensive guy at first.
And that's just the infield for the American League. Behind them, you could have Joe Adell playing next to Jared Kelenic, playing next to Luis Robert. I mean, it's just going to ooze potential. Now, what bothers me, and I definitely said this on the podcast before, is that it's 7 innings and we're only going to get limited looks at these guys, and that's just disappointing because a 9-inning game, 2 more innings, what's the difference? But still, like that could be another Wander Franco at bat. That could be, especially for the pitching side, that could be a chance to see Nate Pearson, whereas maybe he doesn't get to throw on Sunday because he gets held out. I'm not saying Pearson will, but you know what I mean. There are going to be pitchers that are going to be held out, or they're going to be limited to pitching to only 2 batters maybe, as they try to work their way through these pitching staffs. But again, this American League pitching staff could conceivably only use top 100 prospects. Jordan Balazovic, J.B. Bukauskas, Justin Dunn, D.L. Hall, Matt Manning, Grayson Rodriguez, Brady Singer, Nate Pearson, I already mentioned. They could just use top 100 guys and leave the non-top 100 guys off the list. And by the way, one of those non-top 100 guys is Davy Garcia, who has struck out about 40% of the batters he's faced this season, most in the minor leagues. That's just insane. And if you think I'm going heavy on the AL here, I totally understand. But the NL could do the same thing. Ian Anderson to Mackenzie Gore. I hope Mackenzie Gore starts. I hope he gets to face as many batters as he can, because he needs to see somebody else other than Cal League hitters who he's dominating to the tune of a 1.02 ERA. But I hope he starts and gets at least an inning. That would be great. But yeah, Ian Anderson to Mackenzie Gore to Anthony Kay, who's been on this podcast before, to Dustin May, who's been on this podcast before, to Adrian Morejon, to Luis Patino, to Sixto Sanchez. That's a 7 innings right there of only top 100 prospects. It's just going to be so much fun to see all these guys. And, if there is an advantage here from this shorter game, is that on the pitching side, if guys know they're only facing 2 or 3 batters, we could see additional heat. Not to the point where they're overthrowing. I hope that doesn't happen. And I wouldn't pressure anybody to do that. But put in Sixto Sanchez, tell him he's going to see 3 batters. I mean, there's a chance we're going to see him throw harder than he ever throws, which is really neat to see. I want to see what Nate Pearson's going to do when he can hit. We know he can hit 103. He's done in the past. I think he did that in the Fall Stars game last year. Now it's the national stage. It's not just a Fall Stars game that, there's going to be some coverage of it. This is actually going to be on MLB Network. This is where kind of stars are made. What can Nate Pearson do in a short stint? That'll be really interesting. There were guys returning. Taylor Trammell was the MVP last year after hitting a homer and hitting a triple. He's back for a second time this year. He could be playing in an outfield in the NL with Christian Pache and Monte Harrison, which good luck hitting a ball out there. They're going to cover tons of ground on that out. And again, don't know what the lineup's going to shake out as, but the rest of the NL outfield is Dylan Carlson, who's been one of the breakout prospects of the year, Elliot Ramos, who has been on and off because of injuries, but is a really good hitter, and Alec Thomas, who hit for the cycle yesterday after having a 5-hit performance the day before. There is no real soft spot at all in this game. Maybe the catching spot, because there's 3 catchers on each team. But even then, I mean, the worst catching prospect in the game might be Sam Huff, who has been one of the best sluggers in all of the minors through the first half. It's just a question of whether he can stick behind the plate. But he's going to be playing next alongside Ronaldo Hernandez and Jake Rogers, who are really good. It's just so much fun. I can't wait to get down to Cleveland and see all these guys and how it's going to shake up. Would love to see them over a full 9 innings, but just with the other format change, AL-NL, it's really difficult to say that there's going to be a soft spot at any matchup on Sunday.
We got a question in from one of our longtime listeners, John on Twitter, whose name right now is John Gluten-Free Bacon Lover. I don't think that's his last name, but I'm on board with the bacon as well. John asks, maybe you guys can answer this on the podcast. Why would an organization put the same player in a futures game in consecutive years? Does that happen often? An example, Carter Kieboom went in 2018. He's also going this year. Possibly a chance for scouts to get a look at him before a trade. There's a bunch of different reasons. Sam, give us your thoughts on this.
Yeah, so it's not as simple as teams just saying like, hey, here's who I want to send to the futures game. So it isn't that easy to game the system in that way, necessarily looking for a trade. There's kind of like a committee of people who choose the roster, and then farm directors will chime in and say, hey, we don't want this guy going, maybe because of they don't want him rewarded in that way, or they have somebody else in mind or whatever. But if everybody was just sending, hey, here's the 2 guys we want to go, there'd probably be a lot of mismatched rosters. You're not going to find a lot of catching prospects, or you might only be a team of shortstops, something like that. But in somebody like Kieboom's case, or Joe Adell's case, or Taylor Trammell, like we mentioned, oftentimes it's just, hey, these are the top prospects in that system. We'll get into this in the next segment, but the Washington Nationals this year don't really have a system that's begging for guys to make it to the futures game. And if Kieboom didn't go, it would be a surprise, just because who else are you going to send? Maybe Luis Garcia, who's starting to turn things around, but has kind of struggled as a 19-year-old at Double-A. Kieboom should be there. So you want the top prospects in your system rewarded. Every now and again, you'll see somebody who's going to be pushed to the futures game, so that, not necessarily so they can be traded, but to get as many eyes on them as possible. And again, I think in 80% of cases, if not more than that, it's to reward a good prospect for a good first half, to reward them for the tools that they have, and that kind of thing. But every once in a while, that if the team is looking for an arm and they come to, let's say, the Astros, and they say, Astros, hey, we need to fill an AL pitching spot, and the Astros say, okay, J.B. Bukauskas, who has had his kind of struggles in the first half. We know how talented he is. He's a former first-round pick, kind of advanced coming out of UNC, but struggled a little bit last year, struggled a little bit in the first half, is still there because of his tools. That will kind of make you sit there and be like, wait a second, is he there so he can strike out 2 guys in 3 batters faced, and all of a sudden his stock goes up a bit because he showed it on the big stage. Stuff like that. Kieboom, I would say, is just there because the Nationals need to send somebody, and he's as good a representative as anybody. But it's more of an individual basis. Mostly think positive stuff out of this. Don't think like, hey, this is a guy going, so he can be traded real soon. But there are cases of that, no doubt.
Strike 2 this week up on the site right now, midseason farm grades from MILB.com. Sam got a chance to do some of these, collaborative effort with a couple of our other writers on the site. Sam, the biggest takeaways from midseason farm grades right now in the American League and the National League, if you had to encapsulate them, are what?
So quick shout out to the people who helped me with this: Chris Tripodi, Josh Jackson, and Kelsey Hennigan. They all took divisions. I took 3 of the divisions. They took the other 3. So go read those up on the site. Midseason farm system grades. We divided it up by American League and National League. So, find your team, whoever you want to find in there. I've already had one person angrily tweet at me because of my Washington grade.
Nice.
But we'll start out with the positive first, and I'll get into Washington in a second. The positives, the ones that we gave A's to, I think the San Diego Padres we have to throw in there, just because we knew that they were going to be talented coming into the season. They graduated Fernando Tatis Jr., Chris Paddock, and Francisco Mejia. I'm one who's going to give them credit for that. Pushing Tatis Jr. to start the year there, pushing Paddock to start the year in the majors. That's pretty good. And just to replace those guys with Xavier Edwards and Josh Naylor, who's had a really strong first half, and he reached San Diego. they still have the most top 100 prospects in baseball, and I think that's worth some points in this kind of format. But also there are other breakouts in that system. Luis Campusano is somebody I know Padres fans thought should have gone to the Futures game with the way he's hit at Lake Elsinore. Ty France pushed his way to the majors. Andres Munoz is one of my favorite relievers to watch this year just because he can light up the radar gun. Joey Cantillo with Fort Wayne staff we thought, or the lower levels we thought was going to be dominated by talk of like Mackenzie Gore and Luis Patino, but Cantillo is almost becoming as much a must-follow prospect as those guys. There have been some trip-ups, but still this Padres first half, the way they've pushed guys to the major leagues, the way that they've had strong performances basically at every level is worthy of an A+. One of the other A's I gave was to the Los Angeles Dodgers. Just because this Dodgers system has been kind of fun to watch. I mean, we weren't necessarily thinking of them as, hey, this is like a top tier system necessarily, but Gavin Lux was one of the best hitters at Double-A before he moved up to OKC. Dustin May was maybe one of the best pitchers at Double-A. Will Smith has already climbed to the majors at times. Tony Gonsolin done the same thing. Jeter Downs and Josiah Gray, who they got from the Reds in the offseason, have had good first halves. Alex Verdugo technically graduated, so again, they earned some points there. To give the Dodgers an A isn't to say that, hey, we think they're in the conversation with the Padres and the Rays and whatever for a top system in all of baseball. But in terms of how we evaluate the way the first half has gone, I can't see it going much better for the Dodgers than it really has. Just to quickly also mention the Rays, who also got a strong grade here. Wander Franco becoming the top overall prospect in baseball and continuing to grow in the way he has. We're going to give them points there. Brandon Lau signing his long-term extension and then becoming to the point where he was an all-star in the first half. Since he was a prospect at the beginning of the year, that gets farm system points. Nate Lowe has also moved his way to the majors, which has been really fun. Brendan McKay, we'll talk about next segment, has moved to the majors by being one of the best pitching prospects in baseball, but also showing a little bit with the bat, enough that the Rays are still letting him be a DH in the major leagues. Matthew Liberatore and Shane Baz are doing well at the lower levels. As good as the Rays system was at the beginning of the season, they are meeting expectations, and expectations were so high that, again, that gets an A grade. So those are the guys those are the systems I would put at the top shelf right now. At the bottom, one I want to shout out real quick, Josh Jackson, our friend who was on the podcast last week, gave an incomplete to the Oakland A's, which was a great grade.
Yeah, it is.
Kind of out of left field. But the A's have dealt with so many injury problems at the beginning of the year. They had a big three of prospects, really. Jesus Luzardo, who was competing for a major league job out of spring, then got injured. Now he's injured again. He's got a strained lat, and we don't know when he's going to be back. AJ Puck was coming back from Tommy John surgery.
Competing for a big league job last spring, we thought.
Right, yeah. And we still haven't seen him at full strength, really. Sean Murphy, their catching prospect, has dealt with his own injuries in the first half. It would just be unfair to give the A's grades for injury problems like these. So we gave them an incomplete. And just to kind of tease that I would talk about the Washington Nationals, I gave them a D for the first half. At the time I wrote it, they had the 19th best winning percentage among all 30 farm systems, which isn't great. I'm not going to give them points for that. Fresno they technically lead their division in the PCL, but they're only like 2 or 3 games above 500 at this point. Double-A Harrisburg won the first half, but they had the oldest roster in the Eastern League because the Nats have essentially treated Harrisburg like a taxi squad. If somebody is major league ready, Eric Fetty was one of those. I think Michael A. Taylor is also with Harrisburg now, and they want them close to the major league club. They'll just send them to Harrisburg, which is kind of unfortunate for other Eastern League teams because they're facing really good talent there. It's not usually how it's supposed to work, but in the AAA shuffle, when they got pushed out to Fresno, they didn't want to send guys 5-hour flights away to have to bring them all the way back, or however long it takes to fly from Fresno to D.C. Luis Garcia, like I said, was aggressively moved to Double-A, showing some signs of turnaround, but this is analyzing the first half, and he really struggled in April and May. Mason Denneberg, their first rounder last year, is just starting to pitch in the GCL. So I can't really give him much of a grade because we just haven't seen him enough. And otherwise, there aren't really many prospects in that Nats system that are pushing for top 100 inclusion. So it's disappointing from that aspect. I will say, if I'm going to give organizations other points for graduating prospects, the fact that Victor Robles is now officially graduated is a point in the Nats' favor. And, various things keep them from an F. But if you're a Nats fan, you got to hope for, Carter Kieboom keeps hitting like he has at AAA and can turn things around at the MLB level, because that first stages of the major leagues was really difficult for him. And it was kind of a one step forward, one step back situation for the entire system at a time when the system should be growing. I just don't see it. And that's the rubric I kind of hold for that Nats farm.
And strike three this week, a couple of top prospects have arrived at the major league level on the pitcher's mound. Tampa Bay Rays pitcher Brendan McKay and Chicago White Sox pitcher Dylan Cease. I think we should start with Brendan McKay, who took a no-hitter into the sixth inning in his big league debut, finishes with 6 one-hit scoreless innings, 3 strikeouts, 1 walk. He obviously, the conversation about Brendan McKay for so long has been, well, is he going to be a two-way guy at the major league level? His arm and his work on the mound, that's carried him to the big leagues, and obviously deservedly so. Dylan Cease, the Chicago White Sox organization, picked up a win in his big league debut, allowed 3 runs on 4 hits over 5 innings for the White Sox, struck out 6, walked 4. Sam, your biggest takeaways from the first couple outings for those guys?
Yeah, I mean, McKay, I don't know why I get surprised at just how well he's done, because I know there are a lot of evaluators who prefer him on the mound. I've always, at least when he was drafted, I kind of thought he would be more of a hitter, I'll be honest. Just the way he looks with the bat, and given how hard pitching really is and what you need to do to be a really, really good pitcher, I didn't know if it was fully there for him. But what he's done this year at AA and AAA, I mean, it's gotten to the point where it's not just an oddity of like, oh, this is a guy who could do both and provide value that way, so maybe we should add a couple points to his future value. Because he can do both things decently well. This isn't an Ohtani situation where he could be elite at both, but he can do both pretty well. But he's been an elite pitcher for the first half. I mean, he earned this because of the way he was performing on the mound. He had a 1.22 ERA at AA and AAA this year with 88 strikeouts in 66 and 2/3 innings. He's got the size at 6'2", 212 pounds. He's coming at you from the left side. He's got really good control, like I just mentioned with the walk totals, but he's also got 3 above average pitches in the fastball, cutter, and curve. So he's coming at you with multiple things. And to see him take off at the major league level in that first start, like you mentioned, Tyler, with the one hitter, was just really fascinating. And I'm going to be interested to see if he can get more swings and misses. He only struck out 3 in those first 6 innings, but the Rays just continue to bring these guys up and just be like, oh, yeah, we have a hole in our rotation. Well, we've got this guy who's been just shoving at AA and AAA and also, was a premier first-round talent. And, hey, 2-3 days after he pitches, we can use him as a left-handed bat off the bench or at DH. Roster construction in Tampa Bay continues to be so nuts and so exciting and just interesting to see how they utilize that. Letting McKay be part of that rotation, and it sounds like he's there to stick. This was not a one-time shot. It's actually going to take him out of the futures game. He was on the original roster, and he'll be taken off of that. But it's been really, really neat. Just quickly on Dylan Cease. Dylan Cease has actually really struggled before he made the call-up. We all kind of thought he would be up in Chicago by the middle of the season, and he certainly has reached that point. But in June, before he got called up, he had an 8.31 ERA in 5 starts for AAA Charlotte. Now, Charlotte pitches in an extreme offensive-friendly environment. The AAA ball is a little weird this year. I get that. 4 out of his 5 starts in June happened to be in Charlotte. So, that's kind of unfortunate on his end. But if anybody got to see his first major league start the other day, the stuff will certainly play. He can hit the upper 90s with the fastball. His slider made a couple of guys just freeze. I think there was one at bat against Kristen Stewart, that Stewart just kind of had to sit there and watch his knees buckle as a slider dropped in for a strike. He's going to get his strikeouts. He's going to get his swings and misses. It's just making sure that the command of those pitches is good enough and the control is good enough that he's finding the zone, but that the command is good enough that he's not giving up the hard contact. Because, if he can paint with 99, that's going to be so much better than just throwing 99 down the middle, which he can do from time to time. So we'll be interested to see what he does going forward. He gave up 3 runs in 5 innings, ended up getting the win, if that still matters to you. Probably does Dylan Cease to say he won his first major league start. But, he's going to be tested in new and exciting ways now that he's at the major league level.
And that'll do it for 3 Strikes on this week's episode of the show before the show. Coming up, Devin Williams, Biloxi Shuckers right-handed relief pitcher and Milwaukee Brewers prospect, will join the show. Futures game selection, former second-round pick of the Brewers in 2013, a guy who has dominated the Southern League this season. Devin Williams joins the show next. Futures game coming up on Sunday in Cleveland, and with that conversation, we are headed to the Milwaukee Brewers organization on this week's episode of the show before the show, and there we find Devin Williams of the Biloxi Shuckers, who has dominated the Southern League so far this season through 27 appearances and is headed to the Futures game in Cleveland. Devin, welcome to the show, man. What's going on? How are you?
Hey, thanks for having me, man. Just getting some lunch down here in Carroll, Mississippi.
Very cool. So tell us about this season. I mean, it seems like it's been kind of a whirlwind, but the numbers obviously have been fantastic for you in Biloxi, and going to a relief role. You started pretty much in large part throughout your first few seasons in the Brewers system, and now a full-time reliever, and you've dominated in that role. What has this year been like for you?
It's been different for sure. Really just took me kind of like that first month of the season to adjust and like get a routine down like as a reliever, because I was still starting all through spring training, so I didn't really get used to that then. But since then, it's been good, man.
What's the biggest thing about when you go from being a starter to being a reliever? Obviously, with the way your stuff is going to play and how you prepare for your days is going to be entirely different. But from like a mental standpoint, what's the biggest adjustment been for you? I mean, I know it's certainly not the same managing your workload. You can kind of go out and blow it out for short periods of time versus having to pace yourself as a starter. What have you liked most about that, on the mental side, being in the bullpen?
I mean, I like the fact that I'm going to be in there for 1 or 2 innings, and I can just go gas it out, and also like the extra adrenaline that is added at the end of the game. I've kind of embraced that and kind of gotten comfortable with that.
Yeah, and you mentioned being able to blow it out a little bit. Some of the reports we've read are that you were starting to hit upper 90s, even 100 at times. What's allowed you to take that jump other than just the short stints? I mean, what do you feel like you were showing in spring that allowed you to be like, hey, this is the type of pitcher I can be in this role?
I don't really think that my pitching style changed. I think I always kind of threw like kind of like a power arm guy. I just didn't necessarily have the fastball to back it up. So, definitely having that it's made me a lot more effective.
And what's allowed you to have that fastball? What kind of changes were you making, or what kind of training were you putting in to get the gas to be a power arm like this?
I couldn't really tell you, man. I'm 20 pounds heavier now than I have been in any other season, so I'm sure that is playing a big role. But just overall strength, just from rehab with TJ and all that, is just finally catching up and getting my body into the right positions.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned the TJ. For people who don't know, probably people who aren't Brewers fans, you missed all the 2017 season following that type of surgery. Tommy John is actually something we've heard about in the past of guys getting the surgery. Obviously, you never want to undergo something like that and miss a year, but they come back and they find their velocity. Kind of take us through that process for you and what it was like coming back last year at Class A Advanced Carolina and getting to a point now where you're able to tack on even more innings.
Last year was pretty tough, honestly, because I didn't really have the consistency that you needed to compete. And like you're doing that, you're trying to compete with guys that are pretty good, and you're also worried about your arm at the same time. So it's kind of hard to do both and be effective. But I mean, I think I'm kind of past that stage now, and that's why we're seeing the results that we're getting.
Devin, getting a chance to work late in games. I know over the last really couple of weeks, you've gotten your first 2 save opportunities of the season and converted both of those. Pitching in all these various situations as a reliever, is there something that you like most? I know so many guys get into that 9th inning role and they love it because the energy and the emotion into it, and the fact that you can kind of blow it out like you were talking about. Do you like being at the back end? Do you like setting things up for guys? What do you like in terms of the situations that you face?
I'm good with whatever, man. I really don't have a preference. I can be a 1 or 2 inning guy, or 8th inning or 9th inning. Like here in Biloxi, we got my boy Nate Grief, he's got 100 saves under his belt. So I'm completely okay with letting him have that 9th inning. But I've gotten a few saves whenever he's down, so I'm comfortable filling in that role also. It doesn't really matter to me.
How is it when you're around all these guys who have, been relievers for a little bit longer in their pro careers maybe and have some of that experience, the conversations that you get to have with them in the bullpen or working with the guys in spring training, what are the things you've kind of learned most from other relievers that you've been around this year?
It's really just like figuring out how to get ready and be ready at any time. Like whenever the walkie-talkie goes off, you got to get hot right then and there. So that's like the biggest thing, is just making sure that you're ready at all times.
And let's pivot to the Futures game here coming up on Sunday. Given everything that you've shown this year in that relief role, you get the call that you're going to the Futures game, which is one of the coolest things a minor leaguer can do and a prospect can do. What was the process of finding out? When did you hear that you were going to go to Cleveland?
I found out about a week before they announced it, or the Sunday before. Mikey, our manager, called me into his office, and honestly, I thought he was going to tell me I was being traded, because that was the last thing that I thought he was going to say. But, yeah, that was pretty much it.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, because I was going to ask about is that even something that you were expecting? I mean, you, as Tyler mentioned, you were a 2nd-round pick in 2013. You've been around in the Brewers system for a while, all different sorts of levels, and now this opportunity comes almost 6 years after you've been drafted. What were your kind of expectations for honors or getting noticed in the way that you had changed your game to fit a relief role?
I mean, I didn't really have any expectations as far as honors go. I wanted to go out there and, do what I know that I can do. And I had a bounce-back season coming off of last year that was pretty rough for me. But I had no inkling of this at all. Like, I definitely wasn't thinking I was going as a 24-year-old reliever I'm not even in our top 30. So
Well, maybe that'll change if you can show gas on Sunday, or given the way this first half has gone, I think you've certainly thrown yourself into that conversation. But what kind of approach do you have for a game like that, knowing that it's going to be on MLB Network, knowing that you are going to be in a major league stadium pitching against, really good competition, the Royce Lewises, the Joe Adells, the Luis Roberts of the prospect community? Have you given a chance to think about what that moment has been like yet, or will be like?
I mean, I'm going to approach it just like any other game, honestly. We face good competition down here every night. And every out's tough to get. Like, I've seen a couple of the guys that are gone. Like, we got Pache tonight. He's with the Brewers. That's where we are right now. We just had Adele in our last series. He seemed a little impressive, but you got to approach it just like any other game.
Devin, let me ask you this question. The collection of talent, that Brewers system, is so fun right now, and obviously there are guys, Keston Hiura comes to mind probably most, that are either near or at the major league level now with him being back there. To face these stars coming up on Sunday is one thing, but if you got a shot to face one guy in your own system, if you could face a fellow Brewers dude who you want, one at bat, game on the line, who is the hitter that you would most want to face?
Best hitter that I want to face?
Yeah, the one guy in your own organization. Who would that be?
Are we talking minor leagues or major leagues?
Let's go both. Why not?
It's got to be Yelich. Then.
Atta boy, I like it. I like it. When you said that, I was like, oh, he's going for Yelich, isn't he?
Yeah, you gotta test yourself against the best.
How would you work against him? What do you think your approach would be?
Don't throw him high and in, because he seems to like that pitch.
And he'll launch it 9,000 feet. Well, at least you won't have to see him in the home run derby or anything like that.
Yeah.
Devin, what's the travel schedule like now? Obviously, you're in Pearl at the moment. When do you end up heading to Cleveland? I mean, how is that structured for the next few days?
I head out of here. I got a 6 a.m. flight on Saturday morning. And then I go to Atlanta, on to Cleveland. And then I'll be there for Saturday and Sunday. And then I head back Monday morning.
And what kind of plans do you have for Cleveland? Are there family, friends coming into the game? You're a Missouri guy that's not particularly close. It's not the longest flight in the world either to get there. How many people are going to be showing up, or how many texts have you heard from people saying they can't wait to see you out there?
Yeah, I got probably around 20 to 25 people will be going for me, so it's quite a bit.
Yeah, no, how are they all family or are they friends? I mean, how many people are
pretty much
making
like
up?
My mom and my sisters, my grandparents, a couple aunts and uncles and cousins, and a couple of my boys from back home. They're making a trip also.
Very cool. Well, one thing I wanted to ask you too is we talked about that upper velocity, and again, I've read reports on this, and so confirm me if I'm wrong, or one way or the other. Have you hit 100 before?
Before this year, no.
Well, no, but like this year, have you hit 100?
Oh, yeah.
On the gun.
I have.
Okay, great. So take me through that first moment when that happens, because that's such a eye-opening experience from anybody I've talked to, seeing triple digits on a radar gun or knowing what it's like coming out of your hand. What was that moment like for you when you first knew that was a possibility?
I mean, I knew that I could probably get there because, like, I had a couple games where I started popping 98s and 99s, and I couldn't get to that 100 for probably about over a month. And it honestly wasn't even on a pitch. I thought the pitch that I threw after that was harder, but it was actually slower. But, yeah, it was a lot of adrenaline. I came in 2 outs and the bases loaded in the 8th inning. I got 1-2 count, and I guess I just tried to gas him up. And that was the 100.
So is that something you're going to aim for again on Sunday? Or I know you said you're going to approach it for like any other game, but there's got to be a small part of you that's like, again, this is on MLB Network, big league stadium. This is a chance to show off. Will the radar gun be in the back of your mind at all, or how do you kind of put that out of your mind if that's what you want to?
I mean, I won't be checking the radar gun, no, but I know that I'm going to have a lot of adrenaline, so I wouldn't be surprised to see it happen again.
That is pretty cool stuff. Devin, one more thing before you go. You're a big St. Louis Blues fan, so obviously May and June, a little bit of fun for you. You're trying to watch your team run to its first Stanley Cup while playing a professional baseball player's schedule. What was that like? I mean, I would imagine every night you're out there, they're playing while you're sitting in the bullpen. Can you get updates? Did you I don't want you to out yourself as having a phone, but how are you following things? And did you get to watch Game 7 as it happened, or were you guys playing?
That was actually pretty much throughout the whole playoffs. My mom had been recording them, and I could watch them after the game. So I just turn off all the notifications and everything and just watch it, and then go see everything afterwards. But
so you basically you just had to shut off. You couldn't get texts or look at notifications or anything. You pretty much just had to be tunnel vision until you could get to a TV and watch it all on your own.
Yeah, I mean, I pitched the day before that. I threw like 2 or 3 innings, so I knew that I wasn't going to throw the next day. So I may have made a few trips to the clubhouse to check the score.
That is awesome.
All right, Devin, we'll end on this one. I wanted to ask about this because this is your pinned tweet on Twitter, and I think usually that's what we all want to put forth into the world, at least when it comes to social media, is that pinned tweet and what we want others to see the first thing. And yours is this. It says, everyone's path is different, embrace yours. What about your path between Tommy John, between being a high pick and having some issues earlier in your career that's allowed you to get here? What have you embraced about your path that has allowed you to become a Futures game player?
I mean, you just got to take the punches as they come, man. You can't look at it and say, well, it's got to be this way, or like that guy did this and that, or whatever. Everyone's path is different. Like, that's exactly what it said. Like, there's so many guys that had so many different things happen to them and so many different obstacles they had to overcome just to get to the big leagues. And I mean, I'm just trying to do the same thing.
That is good stuff. Devin Williams is on Twitter at DTrain with an extra N_23. And you can catch Devin coming up this weekend at the MLB Futures game in Cleveland, Ohio. And enjoy every minute of it, man. Congratulations on the success this season, and best of luck on Sunday and the rest of the way. We'll be watching.
All right, thank you.
All right, and we're back. And we're actually back because it's been a while. Actually in New York City, sitting here right next to me. I'm going to say it this time, sitting to my left. I know people usually see it from your perspective, but this time they're seeing it from mine. You are to my left. Benjamin Hill, welcome back to the show. It's been a while. How are you?
Hey, it has. It's been a while. It's whatever you want to say. But man, I haven't talked to you guys for a number of weeks, and even the last time I did talk to you, I was on the road still, and I feel like a lot has happened in life. I hope you're doing well, Sam.
I am doing well. We do talk every day. Like, that's not people think like we come into a podcast bunker and this is how we catch up every week.
I like to pretend on the podcast that I have not seen you since the last time we spoke on the podcast.
All right, I won't break character then.
Please
but yeah, last time we talked to you, you were, I think, walking around Amarillo, essentially getting a sense of what baseball was like back there, and you found out that there was a lot of history in Amarillo. But you finished up a trip. While you were over there, you also went to Albuquerque, you went to El Paso, 2 Pacific Coast League mainstays now. Kind of take us through what the rest of the trip was like for people who haven't read the stuff on the site that we'll get to in a little bit.
Yeah, well, obviously plenty of stuff on the site and much more to come, milb.com/bensbiz. One of the ways I'm doing my trips this year is, spending, if it's a new ballpark, attending 3 games. And I kind of thought that would give me a lot of time to just not hang out, but to get caught up on writing and whatnot. But I'm finding that there's just always things to do. So that time in Amarillo, doing interviews during the day, trying to see attractions in and around town. Of course, I went to Cadillac Ranch, and I even made a brief stop at the Big Texan Steakhouse, where you get if you can eat a 72-ounce steak in an hour or less, you get that steak for free. And that is those are 2. I think if you talk pre-sod poodles, I think if you said to the average person who doesn't know much about Amarillo, like what names something about Amarillo, I think Cadillac Ranch and Big Texan would be the 2 that would come up most kind of pop culturally, and the George Strait song, Amarillo by Morning. I'm not sure if he wrote that one, but he made it most famous. But now sod poodles are really putting Amarillo on the map as well. So there was... Long story short, my whole point is it was just a whirlwind in Amarillo. A lot of people told me, there's just not much to do in Amarillo. But I'll tell you this, if you're in Amarillo for 3 days, and especially if you're there professionally as a minor league baseball writer, there is plenty to do. And I really enjoyed it there, and people were super friendly. So that was great. And then on to Albuquerque, home of the Isotopes, 2 nights there. Still got some more material from there, but I hadn't been there since 2014, and that was only one night, and it was like a dead Monday or Tuesday 5 years ago. So it was great to be there over a weekend, really take in a better aura and energy, and there was just more substantial life force emanating from the Isotopes game experience than there was the last time I was there. Really colorful place. I really enjoy it. And I also really enjoy El Paso, home of the Chihuahuas. Great to be back there. You know, in the off season, I wrote a story naming my level by level favorite ballparks, and I named the Chihuahuas home of Southwest University Field, or Park, as it were. My favorite AAA ballpark, and I think that holds up. There were some tweaks and changes to it, but it really is pretty similar to how it was 5 years ago, which was its first year, and just a beautiful environment, quirky architecture, right on the border of Mexico, great food at the ballpark. Everything I loved about El Paso, the Chihuahuas experience from 5 years ago, is more or less intact 5 years later. So 2 nights there, and there were 2 nights in Albuquerque, 3 in Amarillo, so I was gone for about a week, more or less, and I'm still writing about it.
And one of the things you got to do in El Paso that I'm curious about, you were there for a Copa night, right? Where they were the margaritas?
I was the second night I was there. I was in El Paso on a Monday and a Tuesday. And Tuesday, June 18th, they did play as the Margaritas, the El Paso Margaritas. The margarita was potentially invented in El Paso. It looks maybe like it was probably more across the border in Juarez, but that's El Paso adjacent. No matter how you want to sort it out, certainly the margarita has deeper roots in El Paso than just about any other American city. So they went with that. If you haven't seen those uniforms, very, very lime green, including the pants.
Not hard to find those uniforms.
Yeah, so it was cool to see a game in that. And they played Oklahoma City, and Oklahoma City played as their Copa identity, which I'm blanking on the name of, and I'm going to butcher it anyway. It's like the sky, the ciel. Sam is frantically looking it up, and we have the
Cielo Azul.
Yes, the Cielo Azul. So they had a more of a light blue color scheme, and the margaritas, the kind of garish green. Garish has negative connotations. Let's say vibrant, a vibrant light green.
I'm trying to think of a garish and garnish pun here to make, but anyway, go on.
Yeah, garish, garnish. So that was good. That was on Tuesday. I met with my designated eater that night too, and there was a lot of interesting food stuff to cover, so stay tuned for more on that. And so on and so forth. It just keeps rolling. This is the busiest time of year. I mean, Sam, you and I are here talking on July 3rd, when a lot of Americans, perhaps you listening to this, are on vacation or winding down, and in the world of baseball, it's just kind of like peak everything right now. We're peaking, tweaking. I'm peaking.
Yeah, no, short season's underway. The All-Star break is this weekend. We've got a AAA All-Star game, Eastern League All-Star game next week. I mean, we're fully into it now. But you touched on kind of the general stuff about your trip. Now I want to get into a little bit more specifics, things people can read on the site. You've got 3 on-the-road pieces I want to touch on real quick. The first one, I think you mentioned Amarillo, and it put it on the minor league map for sure. This offseason with the branding the sod poodles, which made everyone literally everywhere ask what is a sod poodle, including people in Amarillo, which is fascinating. You have a story on Ed Montana, who is the PA guy in Amarillo, right? Yeah,
I got a piece that appeared earlier this week on Ed Montana. And on one hand, that's just the kind of standard straight-ahead profile of the team's PA announcer. He's Ed Montana. He's a country music musician. He played in the Coors, or as he would say, and a lot of people would say Kurz, the Kurz light traveling rodeo band for years. He still is on the rodeo circuit all the time, playing country music on behalf of Kurz Light, the official beer of the rodeo. I'm sure it's more specific than that. Anyway, Ed Montana, big bushy mustache, quintessential Texas guy, has been in Amarillo for 40 years, plays country music, has several CDs that you can listen to on Spotify. Well, you can listen on Spotify, you can get his CDs. As soon as I saw him, and I was stereotyping, true, I was like, that guy just looks like a Texas guy. And
it is Texas, yeah.
And I just, you hear his backstory with rodeo and beer and country music and, patriotic guy, definitely more conservative views. And so it just, I felt that he would make for a really good story on baseball in Amarillo. One, because he struck me as kind of a Amarillo archetype, and 2, he, like a lot of people in Amarilloans, there we go, Amarilloans, when that name came out, he was like, I've lived here for decades. I've never heard of a sod poodle. and he didn't like it at first. And I just kind of thought using Ed Montana's sort of personal, emotional journey through from Sod Poodle's, confusion and anger towards acceptance could kind of have him as a stand-in for kind of Amarillo at large for what this community went through to accept the name. So that story is up on the site now about Ed Montana. He actually did, when the team name finals were announced, he wrote a song and played it on the local news. He has a Tuesday segment on a local morning show and played a song called What is a Sod Poodle? And it's a good song. I wish I could sing. It's like, what is a sod poodle? Well, I said sod poodle. Do they live down? I can't.
Let's leave it to Montana
it's good.
To sing.
I even looked on Google. I couldn't find sod poodle. Well, like it or not, I guess that's what we've got. I can't really do it, but and I messed up the big long line in the middle there. Anyway, Ed Montana, I enjoy his music. I enjoyed talking to him, and I hope you enjoy reading a story about him in which you'll learn about the Sod Poodle's PA announcer, but also, as I said, bigger picture, kind of the emotional journey this town has gone through to Sod Poodle's acceptance. And I'm not just saying that Sod Poodles are popular. I was there. They are. There are people everywhere wearing the merch. They're drawing 7,000 on a Tuesday night. There is the team store just during the game, almost all game long, had lines practically out the door. Amarillo has embraced the Sod Poodles, even if they did not know that a Sod Poodle was a slang term for a prairie dog. Yeah.
No, and this is one of those stories that I think you almost do better than anybody out there in terms of taking an individual and placing them in this larger conversation that we always say, it comes to communities come to embrace these names, and there's a lot of internet cacophony of people just yelling back and forth, but here's an actual person who can speak for the larger movement down there and towards acceptance. And I think in one of the blurbs we wrote, even love of the Sod Poodle.
That's right.
Moving on to your time in El Paso real quick. El Paso, the Chihuahuas, focusing on the field here, have a really unique situation in the coaching staff in that they have two brothers. People may have heard of them before, Morgan and Lance Burkhart, working together on the coaching staff. You got to talk to both of them in the El Paso dugout a little bit, hear about their relationship growing up together and what it's like working with each other now. What can you tell us about that situation on the Chihuahua staff?
Yeah, when I do stuff that's more oriented towards on the field, I want to find kind of quirky angles or just things you don't see very often. I got a story on a Sod Poodles coach named Freddie Flores that I'm looking forward to writing that it should appear next week. He's got an interesting story. I like baseball lifers, and the Burkharts are baseball lifehearts. They are baseball lifers. They're guys in their mid-40s now. Morgan is the older one, and if you one Burkhart brother, would probably be Morgan because he did play in the major leagues pretty briefly, but had a couple years in which he appeared with the Red Sox and another with the Kansas City Royals. He was actually the first Frontier League player, an independent league player, first person from the Frontier League to make it to major leagues. So anyway, Lance Burkhart, 4 years Morgan's junior. He played professionally, indie and affiliated for 13 or 14 years. And you know how it goes in the world of the minors. You're just kind of like twisting and bouncing around this way to that, one organization to another. And Morgan retires, and then Lance retires, and Morgan gets into coaching, and they're both into coaching, and they're doing this and they're doing that. They eventually end up both in the Padres organization in, I believe, 2016, and then prior to 2018, they were assigned to the same team. And it's interesting, these guys who are just 4 years apart and brothers and have both dedicated their entire lives, both as children all the way up through the present day, to baseball. This is the first time they've been on the same team together because they were just old enough, or the age difference was such that they never played growing up and never ended up on the same team, through their professional careers. So now it's the year 2018 and then into 2019, and they are on a AAA coaching staff together. So I just kind of talked to them about that. As a couple of grinders who, played in the indie leagues, played a lot of time in the minors, they very much are that breed of baseball player who are just always going to, with their quotes and with the way they filter, questions about their careers, something related to, we just go about our business. We don't think about the future. We don't think too much about the fact that we're even on this team together. They are just so don't take anything for granted. Take it one day at a time. I think Morgan in particular was more willing to kind of say like, yeah, man, this is kind of awesome. But I think when you have that kind of grinding it out minor league baseball existence, you just kind of, as cliched as it is, you keep your head down, do it one game at a time. Don't worry about next year until next year. But let's be real. These guys are enjoying the ride. They're enjoying the fact that they are in their 40s in a great minor league baseball town and facility, and being able to be on the same coaching staff together. And Morgan is hitting and Lance is fielding, but Morgan was basically saying like, Lance does a ton of help with me on the hitting side, and we grew up, we had the same mentality. And so it's, yes, every coach needs a title, but as you know, it might not always be so cut and dry in terms of the work that the coaches actually do.
Especially in the minor leagues where, the idea of a fielding coach didn't even exist a couple of years ago, really. It was, you had the manager, the hitting coach, and the pitching coach, maybe one extra coach to work with Spanish guys. Now we're expanding minor league staffs, and I think ways that are obviously helpful for players because they have more people to talk to, but also for coaches, like you said, the Burkharts get to work together. They are getting AAA experience ahead of potentially a major league job. But one thing I like is that they aren't focused on the next thing right now. They're focused on helping out El Paso, and that's been one of the more fun teams to follow from afar, I think, this season so far. And obviously they play in a pretty offensively friendly area, but maybe Morgan can use this as I coached the team that hit, set the minor league record for home runs if they continue on this pace. So that one was pretty cool. One more we'll touch on your time in Albuquerque. Again, this is kind of on the field. It's not really. It's about a player, which is something you don't often necessarily write about.
If I can get the quirky angle, I'm a quirky guy.
And this is pretty quirky, I would say. It's Josh Fuentes in the Rocky system. Albuquerque Isotopes player, pretty good hitter. But this isn't about any of that. This is about his time as DJ Fuente. The clubhouse DJ, essentially, and how popular he is as that. What kind of sense did you get out of DJ Fuente in your time there?
Well, this is a guy who has had an unexpectedly, he's injured right now, but unexpectedly successful minor league career since when he was first joined the Rockies. He was best known as Nolan Arenado's cousin. But independent and irregardless of his on-field performance, and he was the Pacific Coast League MVP last season, he is now the sole DJ on a admittedly fictional clubhouse radio station, 96.7 The Fuente. And it basically is that he controls the music in the clubhouse every single game. And not only that, he makes playlists that he gives to people in the press box for, BP mixes and stuff like that. He also, by request and for quite a lot of the players, chooses walk-up songs for a lot of his teammates. And so big picture, he's the guy who sort of curates and sets the stage both in the ballpark for actually a lot of the fan experience, even if you might not know it, certainly in the clubhouse, what's played there, talking about how, obviously in a minor league baseball culture, which is always going to be diverse in terms of the actual makeup of the players and then by extension the genres of music that they like, kind of how do you balance guys who might want to hear country, who want to hear, various subgenres of Hispanic music, merengue and salsa. I mean, obviously a lot of hip hop, and on and on and on. And I think he goes out of his way to research things, to get input, and try to make everyone happy by being the Fuente on 96.7. And when he's healthy, and he will be healthy again when he hits a double. And the picture we have in the story is he gets on second base and puts his hands on each side of his ears as if he's like adjusting a big pair of headphones like a DJ. So I found him to be a nice guy, and I'm not going to write stories about guys being prospects. I leave that to Sam and the gang. That's what I call you guys. Sam and the gang.
The other side of let's not point me at that sounds like a hip hop group that I can never actually front. But anyway.
Yeah, Sam and the gang. I know. I whatever. When I do players, I need a quirky angle.
Yeah, no, this is great. And what I love is that they have shirts too. Albuquerque doesn't sell these, right?
These were made. It was a pitcher who was on the team last year, and I'm gonna find his name in the story real quick. Who made it?
Zach Roscup.
There we go. Zach Roscup. He, for whatever reason, thought Fuente's routine was hilarious, and he got the shirts made. And then there was a whole nother order of shirts, and it's a whole thing. And you gotta like that. It's again cliche, the grind, But it's a long season. It can be a grueling season. It can be a dispiriting season. And I think when you have things like this, these self-assigned roles, these nicknames, these rituals, you see this more and more T-shirts and sort of like unofficial merchandise. I think it really helps cumulatively, collectively build a team's character and build individual characters and help guys differentiate themselves, in ways that they can't just by being only known as a baseball player only.
And one thing we should mention real quick, at the time you talked to him, he was injured. Now he's back.
Oh, he's back.
So if you do want to see DJ Fuente at Isotopes Park, go on ahead. He's back now. He's back in the lineup. He's been there just 3 days ago. He returned to the Isotopes lineup, so that's pretty fun for him. And think about him every time a song plays there, I guess, right? He's probably had a hand in it.
A lot of them. A lot of the players' walk-up songs. If you're in an Isotopes game and you hear, just some of their walk-up songs, know them. A lot of them, the majority even, were chosen by DJ Fuente.
There you go. All right, so it seems like you just got back. I mean, you just got back to the podcast, obviously, but you're going to be on the road again very soon. Staying within this state, at least, you're going to be going to Syracuse and Auburn on the 12th and the 13th. What are you looking forward to about that trip, and how are you going to kind of sneak that into? You kind of just announced that recently.
Yeah, I just announced it yesterday. We're sitting here talking on July 3rd, the day before America's birthday, and on July 2nd, I just announced this. It's like a mini trip. I call it a jaunt. July 12th in Auburn, home of the Double Days. July 13th, Syracuse, home of the Mets. I'll be traveling with my good friend Nando DeFino, who's a Syracuse native, who has been upset with me for a number of years for giving what he believes to be short shrift to his region. So, by traveling with a local a little bit, I hope to see the sights and, correct any perceived wrongs I apparently have perpetuated on the central New York region, although I think I've been very fair. Both these places were places I was in 5 years ago. Auburn Double Days 5 years ago, I was there, and, just to be quite honest, was not really impressed with the operation and with just like the fan experience and just with the energy there. But in the ensuing years, I've run into several more recent hires on the Double A staff saying, please come back. It's not like that. So I'm like, all right, I'm coming back.
Now's the time.
I really want to see how it's changed in the last 5 years. And of course, a lot has changed in 5 years in Syracuse, who are not the Chiefs anymore. They are the Mets. But on the day I will be in attendance, July 13th, they will not be the Mets either. They will be the Butter Sculptures, which is a reference to a popular thing that happens at the New York State Fair in which butter artisans create sculptures. And so the team is going to play as the Butter Sculptures.
And one thing we should point out real quick, too, is one of the things you've been doing this season is spending multiple days at parks. But for these trips, it's just going to be one-off.
This is just an old school, a little bit of a weekend, just Friday, Saturday. It's a throwback, yeah, exactly. And then later in the month, I'll do a more substantial trip, which we'll talk about later, but involving Vegas and Fresno. But first things first, a little Central New York jaunt.
All right, so we'll probably preview that a little bit more next week. We'll hit you before you go there. But, it's good to have you back, Ben. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Sam. It's good to be back. It's been a while, as Scott Stapp would say, but I'm glad to be back.
Is that the first Creed reference we've ever had on this show?
Final segment of this week's episode of the show before the show. Happy 4th to all of you. Sam, this weekend, MILB.TV, what are you watching?
Yeah, so I will actually be in Cleveland, bringing you guys all sorts of stories, future tool sheds, hopefully a podcast interview for next Wednesday. But if you get a chance to watch MILB.TV this week, what I would keep an eye out for is the Buffalo Bisons, a team we've mentioned in the past, but right now I'll bring them up again just because Bo Bichette has been really, really good since he got back from injury. Over his last 19 games, he's hitting .342 with a .905 OPS. His first trip to AAA before he got hurt was just kind of okay, but now this is back to the Bo Bichette we know can be an elite offensive player. To see him hit like this in 19 games, it's not a terribly small sample, but it's not huge either, but he's still only 21 years old. I would not be surprised to see him in Toronto by the end of the month, given the way things are going. So catch him now before he makes the majors, kind of check in on his progress, see how he is doing, because I think that bat's going to play anywhere he gets the chance. And now that he's fully healthy, we're seeing its full capabilities, which is really neat to see. So watch the Buffalo Bisons this weekend and early next week. I think they're playing Syracuse in the next couple days. So that'll be a fun one to watch. Tyler, what do you got your eye
on? This is a cheap one. It's a low-hanging fruit. I didn't bring it up because I didn't want you to say, like, come on, man, get more creative. But the 2019 AAA All-Star Game is coming up on Wednesday.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah.
It's kind of a cop-out. It is on MILB.TV. But the reason I'm plugging it, it's also on MLB Network, and I'm excited for this broadcast crew because it's Scott Braun with Bill Ripken, but Jim Callis is going to be there, who does such fantastic prospect coverage from MLB Pipeline. Kelly Nash will be there as well, who is outstanding. So you can catch that game on MLB Network. You can catch it on MILB TV. You can catch it on the First Pitch app, MLBnetwork.com as well. Yeah, it was an easy one to pick. I'm sorry.
No, I mean, that's I was sitting here scrolling. I'll also shout out the Eastern League All-Star Game, which is that night. We should have just said that. Tyler's watching me sweat as I sit here and be like, who do I want to feature? Oh, I'll feature Bo. And he's quietly just sitting there on the game that you should absolutely watch.
Don't say the All-Star Game. It's an easy one for me. Yeah, it's,
Well, watch Bo Bichette over the weekend, then watch the All-Star games next week. And, there's so much going on MILB TV. I think that's all we've proven here today.
A lot of good stuff, and that'll do it for this week's episode of The Show Before the Show. Big thanks to Devin Williams, and for Sam Dykstra, I'm Tyler Mott. We'll talk to you next week.